So this morning, a friend of mine sent me a link to a Gear Page thread that was just posted. And the OP Bedozla says this: after watching several bands this past weekend at Coachella, one thing was obvious. None of the kids these days are playing Gibsons. I saw a couple of Les Pauls, but they were only used for a few songs. The vast majority of bands were all Fender. A fair amount of Tellys, Strats, and Mustangs, but Jazzmasters dominated. There was more variety in amps, but Fender dominated again. Distortion in general seems to be on the outs. Most of the bands were playing clean to overdriven. Special mention to Phoebe Bridgers for rocking what looks like a custom BC Rich Warlock. And I have to say, even though I don't typically like that style of guitar, that's pretty sick. Now, obviously, this is a highly subjective and somewhat anecdotal take, right? This is one person's perspective after watching a handful of bands at one music festival with a certain type of genre of music, right? So this is not indicative of the industry as a whole, but I think there is something to this. I do think Gibson is really missing the boat when it comes to young guitar players. Fender is dominating the space alongside boutique builders. And I think sort of the overall image of Gibson today is it's your dad's guitar. It's a guitar for boomers. It's a guitar for people that want to relive the 60s and 70s. And according to some of the comments in my YouTube videos, people put me in that category as well. Now, is Gibson actually in trouble? Well, at this moment, I don't think so. In fact, I think the new leadership at Gibson over the last 2 years has done a really good job of turning that company around. It wasn't that long ago that the company was on the rocks, and the new CEO, JC, and the leadership there had to take a lot of the bad ideas and poor investments of the Henry J era and fix them. And from what I've seen in that company, their strategy seemed to have been to immediately target people that had money to spend on Gibson guitars. They went back to their roots with the 50s and 60s spec Les Pauls and SGs. They overhauled the factory, got the quality control back up to where it needed to be. And their custom shop started making really unique signature guitars for people like Adam Jones from Tool and Tony Iommi, for example. So it was clear the demographic that they were targeting, Gen Xers and baby boomers who had money to spend on Gibson guitars because their heroes played Gibson guitars. And to be fair, I think it worked. But what I've seen lately is a little discouraging in terms of their marketing. When you look at who's getting signature Gibsons right now, it's people like Gene Simmons with the new signature bass, or Dave Mustaine, for example, or the reiteration of the Slash guitars. Now, all that's great, but young people don't seem to listen to or care about bands like Kiss or Guns N' Roses. Meanwhile, over the last decade, Fender has made a real concerted effort to target young players. They've made more affordable models. They've put their guitars in the hands of up-and-coming artists of all different genres. They've supported a lot of young women players, people like her who have gotten signature Strats, which her signature Strat looks incredible. I'd love to try one out. And I think this has had a real effect for Fender. A lot of younger players are gravitating towards Fender, both because of their marketing, but also because of the price. Fenders are just more accessible than Gibsons. And this is a complaint that I see levied in my comments a lot about Gibsons. They're overpriced. And I actually don't think that's true. I've been to the factory, I've seen their production line, and when you see how a Les Paul is made, you see how they do the binding and how they do the frets and everything, there's a lot more work that goes into making a Les Paul than goes into making a Strat or a Tele. It's just how it is with the design of those guitars. It's easier and cheaper and faster to produce a bolt-on neck solid body guitar than it is to produce a solid body carved top set neck guitar. That's why Leo Fender designed his guitars that way 70 plus years ago, because they were cheaper and easier to make faster. And a lot of young people just don't have the coin to spend on a Les Paul or a 335 or an SG. And so a lot of times that leads them to spend their money on a Fender instead. So that is what it is. So guitar is coming back in popularity. There's no question about it. When you look at how many guitars were played on the Grammys, for example, or Coachella, I mean, there's tons of young musicians that are playing guitar. And 2020 and 2021 were record years for new guitar sales. And what that means is young people that picked up guitar during the pandemic over the next 5 to 10 years are going to become the next generation of musicians. We're going to see the next generation of pop stars and indie artists and singer-songwriters and country stars who started playing guitar and making music during the pandemic. And I question how involved Gibson is going to be in that new music, in that new wave of guitar players, because Today, they are seen as your dad's guitars. They are seen as the boomer guitar. I think it might end up hurting them in the long run. And I think Gibson needs to address this in some way. I think they need to start getting their guitars in the hands of younger players, people that are playing music that's more popular with young people today. Now, the thing to keep in mind is this is not the first time Gibson's been in this position. A similar thing was going on in the 1980s. In the early to mid 80s, everyone was playing super strats, for example. It was the hair metal days and the shredder guitar days, and even players like Clapton, who were longtime Gibson players, were switching to Fenders, for example, were switching to Strats. And a lot of things I'm saying in this video and people on that Gear Page thread are saying now was said back then about Gibson. They're in trouble. They're going to die off. Young people are not interested. But it was Slash that turned that around. It was Slash that basically single-handedly made the Les Paul popular again. If he wasn't playing Les Pauls, if he'd have gone to a Super Strat or Kramer, for example, Gibson may actually have been in trouble. Gibson might not have been able to weather that storm. We'll never actually know, but the point is that there was a young, popular band that picked up their guitars and put them in front of millions and millions of people that influenced younger players at the time to start playing Gibsons. Slash made Gibson cool. And I don't see that happening for Gibson currently. But there's no question that brands like Fender have done a much better job of attracting the younger market than brands like Gibson or even PRS. The thing PRS did right, though, is bring on John Mayer. Almost overnight, John Mayer turned PRS from being seen as like the heavy rock, bro country, dad blues lawyer brand to being somewhat hip. Now they did it by making a Strat, which is, somewhat questionable, but it worked for them. And it seems to me that Gibson needs their white whale. Gibson needs their John Mayer. And I don't know who that is for Gibson. I don't even know if that person exists, but they could start by doing a better job of marketing their guitars and making guitars that young people are interested in. So is Gibson in trouble? Currently, no. I think they're doing a pretty good job, but I think this is something that needs to be addressed and something that they need to change in order to keep that brand alive. And like I've said before, when I've made videos that are critical of Gibson, I say this with love. I love these guitars. I love the sound. I love the way they play, and I want to see this company thrive. I want to see this company stick around. I love the history. I love the impact that these guitars have had on music history and pop culture over the last 70 plus years. And because of that, I think they deserve a place in the market, and I want to see them thrive. I want to see all guitar companies thrive. It's good for all of us. When Fender does well, when PRS does well, when Novo or any other guitar brand or maker does well, it bodes well for us, the players, the consumers, the people that are picking up and buying and using these guitars to make art, to make music, and to express ourselves. It's only good for us when these companies do well. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours in the comment section down below. What do you think Gibson needs to do, if anything? Maybe you completely disagree with me. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. I'll have the link to that Gear Page thread down there as well if you want to check that out and see what's going on over there. If you want to support the channel, you can check out my new video course, Fretboard Fundamentals, Chords, and Rhythm. That's linked down below, as well as my other video courses. And while you're down there, click subscribe. There's a substantial percentage of people that watch this channel on a regular basis that aren't subscribed. I think it's something like 60%. I need to look at my analytics to tell, but it really helps the channel if you click the subscribe button. If you enjoy my videos, you watch them on a regular basis, I would really appreciate the support by clicking that red subscribe button. Long term, I'd love to get this channel up to 1 million subscribers. It's been a goal for mine ever since I started the channel 4 years ago, and we're well on our way. So I appreciate the support. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Rhett Shull, and remember, there is no plan B.